One that I did want to mention that I have just more of a personal connection to, a movie that I didn't really know much about, that I kind of read about. It was a movie I knew of, but I'd never seen it until recently, and wound up really loving it, was the movie Shane. Have you seen Shane yet?
I haven't, no. That's a title I've heard. Yeah, but I don't really know anything about the movie, honestly.
Yeah, I brought it up, I think, last week on the stream, and I think it is one. People know the title, they know the ending. Shane! Yeah, come back, Shane! Like, I think everybody knows that, but it seems to be one, like me, I knew that line, but I'd never seen the movie. And I finally decided to watch it, and it got me really into the director, George Stevens. He's one that you don't really hear about too much. But it was so interesting watching that movie and seeing how much it contrasts with so many other Westerns. You have to talk about when Stevens made it and why he made it. He, before World War II, he was known mostly for comedies and musicals. He actually started with Laurel and Hardy and directed movies for them. And then he started making musicals with Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. And so that's pretty much what he was known for. But then he served in the Second World War. He was a combat photographer. And like everyone who served in the Second World War, he came back very scarred by his experiences and very changed. And his movies became completely different after that. And he did this movie Shane, which was it was based on a novel. It was originally just going to be kind of a program picture, I think an A picture, but still they were just looking for somebody to direct it. And Stevens wound up turning it into his personal statement and putting all of his emotions and experiences from the Second World War into this movie. So it has a very great mythic Western sort of plot line. Alan Ladd plays this gunslinger who wanders into this town. There are all of these immigrant families, homesteaders, settling on the territory, and there's this guy, this cattle rancher, who believes he owns all of the land and wants to run them all off of his property, what he considers his property. And all of the immigrants are trying to stand their ground and stand for their rights to settle here.
So he's kind of the anti-McClintock.
McClintock, yeah. Just owns everything. We watched McClintock with John Wayne.
Yeah.
So when Alan Ladd comes into this, he kind of becomes like that mythic cowboy who decides he's going to stand with the underdogs and protect these people and lend his skills to them. But what's interesting is there are very few shootouts, and there are very few times in the movie where a gun is actually fired. What most of the story is about is all of the characters trying to not use their weapons, not resort to violence. And that really has to do with Stevens' feelings on violence itself and on death, based on what he'd seen in the war, that it's a horrible thing to take a life and it's a horrible thing to witness. And so these characters, you sense a maturity in them, and you sense an awareness in them of the consequences of drawing their weapons and resorting to that, and they want to avoid it at all costs. And so it's really interesting watching how that drama plays out. Even the villain of the movie is a guy who he repeatedly says to the other characters, be reasonable. Just listen to what I'm telling you, do what I say, don't make me take it any further. And just because neither side will back down, it builds and it builds and it builds. And the bad guy, the villain, he brings in a bounty hunter played by Jack Palance, who's like this psychopath, just I can't wait to draw my gun. But even he is very calculating. He knows he can't just go around shooting people indiscriminately. He needs to get them to draw first. So he has to figure out ways of baiting people into getting into a shootout with him. So it's all very planned out, very calculated, and it is all about characters very aware of the consequences of violence and using guns. And it's all about them trying to avoid it. And also there's this character, this little boy, who looks up to the Alan Ladd character, Shane, as this hero and thinks, oh, it's amazing. You're a gunslinger. You use your guns. This is great. You're everything I want to be. And Shane is kind of trying to make this kid understand, you don't want to be like me. This is not a good life. This is not how you want to live. And I just found that really fascinating. I got really involved in that and really drawn into that, of seeing a Western, unlike a Leone Western, where, you know, people will draw their guns and shoot somebody at the drop of a hat and just shrug it off. In this movie, it's very heavy. You feel the weight of that choice, and you feel the weight of every time somebody does decide to draw their gun and use it. It's a big, big thing, and it has massive consequences. And the movie was innovative in its portrayal of violence, too, in that Stevens wanted to show the devastation of somebody actually being shot. And so the first scene where somebody is killed, he was one of the first directors to attach a wire to the actor so that when the bullet hits him, he doesn't die like, oh, and then hits the ground. He's thrown backwards and just hits the ground and is dead before he even knows what happened. And that had never really been seen before. The movie was released in 1953, and that was shocking for people. And I think you still feel some of that impact when you watch the movie today, especially because of the way the story is presented, that it makes you understand this is not a light thing, you know, when you do something like this. This is something that has permanent consequences. I just feel like this is a movie, everybody knows it's a classic, everybody's heard of it. Not enough people have seen it, so I would really recommend people check this one out if they haven't.
If I'm not mistaken, I think Shane's the one that the movie Logan makes heavy reference to. Have you seen Logan?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I have. Yeah, I can totally see that.
I think they make that movie sort of visually quoted, I think even directly. I think there's even a scene in the movie where they're watching Shane. But in your description of it, there's a lot of themes that are parallel to Logan, of this idea of sort of making the violence a lot more real and brutal and feel the impact of these things, of taking a comic book character like Wolverine, who's so heavily associated with brutal, mindless violence, and who's a hero who's beloved for that reason, and bringing it into this different realm of being very kind of remorseful. And there's another parallel is there's a child character that he takes under his wing, and that he's trying to sort of be a role model for. And
the pairing of Wolverine and children is old as dirt. They always give him a cute little kid to hang out with.
Do they? I only know the movie, so I don't really know the comics that well. But
yeah, he's always got a little kid that thinks he's really cool and hangs out with him.
Okay.
Well, he is pretty cool.
Well, it's given a strong resonance in Logan. It's very well done there.
Yeah, I honestly didn't even realize you were talking about an X-Men movie until you finally said Wolverine. I'm like, this must be something else that I don't know about.
It's actually more like a Western than an X-Men movie. It has very similar themes of the kind of the myth making and the bringing it into sort of like a real examination of violence and the toll it takes on a person after so many years of cruelty.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a good movie. I recommend it if you haven't seen it.